Tonight, our in-depth look at the troubling increase in teen suicide continues.
Last night at 11, you heard from a Grand Rapids mother who told the story of her young daughter committing suicide. While the number of teenage suicides has increased over the last decade, it is still relatively uncommon.
There have been 5 teen suicides in Kent County this year out of more than 60 overall. And Target 8 investigator Susan Samples examined some of those cases, 5 of them in fact, and she's here now with more on what you found out, Susan.
That's right, Brian and Marley. I used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain case reports on the 5 teen suicides in Kent County this year. We're hearing so much more about this disturbing phenomenon and what might be prompting it. We wanted to look at the actual cases to try to learn more about why this is happening and what to watch for to try to prevent it. From a 12-year-old girl who would never finish 6th grade to an 18-year-old man who had just graduated high school. In between, 3 boys, ages 14, 15, and 16. Of the 5 young people who died by suicide in Kent County this year, 2 had been diagnosed as depressed and were on medication. A third, the 12-year-old girl, was in counseling after getting kicked out of school for fighting. Another, a 16-year-old star athlete and student, was reportedly despondent over getting suspended for selling pot at school. His first time in trouble, his mom told me. The 18-year-old's girlfriend was in the process of breaking up with him. Dr. Steve Pasternak is the head of pediatric psychology at Helen DeVos Children's Hospital.
When we see suicide attempts in the hospital, a lot of times it is precipitated by some type of relational problem, a breakup with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or a fight with their parents.
Pasternak says our kids are struggling with grown-up pressures at younger ages than ever.
Kids are getting older quicker.
And that's in part why we're seeing suicides and attempts at younger ages too. But Pasternak says the same technology that's exposing some kids to too much too soon can provide critical clues.
And nowadays, because kids are on social media, they will actually throw hints out there a lot of times.
At least 2 of the teens who died by suicide sent disturbing texts shortly before. Another had been on Facebook in the hour leading up to his suicide, talking with multiple people about his intent to hurt himself.
There may not always be a clear warning sign, but when we have the ability to look backwards, we can see the warning signs a lot of the times.
Pasternak tells parents to check their kids' posts on social media. If you can't keep track of them on Facebook yourself, you should try to have a relative do it or a friend and report back to you. And if your child is having emotional problems, if they're struggling, ask them straight out if they have felt like they wanted to hurt themselves. He says it's a myth that you shouldn't do that because you might put some idea in their head. You need to just talk about it honestly and openly. Get help right away, professional help, if they say they've even thought about that fleetingly.
Exactly. Great tips. We always hear about bullying too. Does that play a role in any of this?
Interestingly, in these initial case reports, bullying was not actually mentioned per se in the initial reports, but I know that in at least 2 cases later on, it did come up as a potential factor. So it does play a role sometime, particularly online bullying right now, but usually there are other underlying issues too. We also have resources at woodtv.com.
Important stuff to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Susan, thank you.